Good afternoon, buon pomeriggio, bentrovati, welcome back. I've heard a lot of keywords this morning. We heard together ocean, we heard sustainability, cities, equal opportunities. We understood how ecosystem services are endangered, how their critical role needs to be scientifically explored. We understood we're facing a complex situation, which is far more than complicated. It's a complex situation with a lot of interconnection. Let me add one more word to the list of the keywords of today. Let me add hope, because we are not hopeless in this situation. I am Sandro Carniel. I'm a physical oceanographer, a climate scientist, a writer. I'm sitting in the scientific committee of One Ocean Foundation, and welcome you again to this Dream Team session. So let me call on the floor the guest stars we have today, and that will be helping us and surely amusing me for the next hour or so. Let me proceed with a certain order on this call. Let me have on the floor Kilaparti Ramakrishna, Rama for French, please. Director of the Marine Policy Center, Woodsole Oceanographic Institution, USA. Thank you for being with us, Rama. Take a seat where the microphone is. Yeah, there. Yes, please. Let me proceed with Dawa Stephen Sherpa, CEO of Asia, tracking member of the board of Bally Peak Outlook Foundation. Dawa, please. Thank you for having made it to the highest, from the highest mountains in the world. Please take a seat. And let me then welcome the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Marshall Islands, Kitlang, Kabua. Please join us. Minister. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Please. And we have two guest stars connected with us remotely from the States, from New York, Janulis. Wow. President Emeritus, the Explorers Club. Are you with us, Ted? Let's see. Thank you. Thank you. And last but absolutely not least, of course, I really don't need to use any words to introduce to all of you Her Deepness, Sylvia, Earle. So, I will try to start with you, Sylvia. I know you are extremely busy today from the United Nations. I thank you again really warmly for your kind availability. I would kindly ask you if you can help us setting the scene here. I said that we are facing a difficult situation, a complex situation. I said we do have hope, though. Tell us, help us set in the scene. What is the scientific merit of trying to establish some hope and some physically meaningful, oceanographically speaking, most of all, hope spots, and the role of your Mission Blue initiative? Please, the floor is yours. If you can make it within 10 minutes, but take the time you need. We are really delighted to have you here. Thanks again.
Thank you for the opportunity to be with you. Yes, I'm sitting here at the United Nations headquarters, where I will be speaking soon about what? The ocean. You know, we're celebrating World Ocean Day across the globe. What gives me hope? Well, looking back to 1968, when that first view of Earth, us, our home, from high in the sky, this little blue gem against the darkness of the universe, the beautiful universe that is really not friendly to the likes of us. There may be life elsewhere in the universe, but only our special place, Earth, has the capacity, the history, to make our existence possible. It's taken 4.5 billion years to get us where we are, with a planet that is just right for life as we know it. It's taken us about 4.5 centuries, maybe even 4.5 decades, to accelerate the decline of the systems that make our existence possible. Nothing else matters if Earth is not working in our favor. So when astronauts come back from high in the sky, and a lot of them have been up there looking back since that first view of Earth from beyond our own atmosphere, from the moon, and they just can't contain themselves. They want everyone to know what and see through their eyes this remarkable miracle that Earth exists as it does. I've been privileged to go in the other direction, to spend thousands of hours under the sea, years on the surface at sea, but most importantly, to go deep within the ocean, using more than 30 kinds of little submarines living underwater for weeks at a time, 10 times. But mainly just to have that privilege that, just like going high in the sky, going deep in the sea could not happen until fairly recent times. I mean, you can go one way into the ocean, but it's going down, observing, and coming back that really has made this moment in time, now early in the 21st century, armed with knowledge that did not and could not exist even when I was a child. So that gives me hope. It's knowledge that the children of today, and the grown-ups too, we know what could not be known before. We know what Earth looks like from high in the sky. We know that the ocean is alive from the surface to the greatest depths. It's not just rocks and water that make our existence possible. It's the living planet, from the rainforests to deserts, all of the life that prospers on the land, and even more importantly, the life that prospers in the sea, that shapes planetary chemistry. One thing that I personally have witnessed, and like the astronauts who come down from high in the sky, and they want to tell you what it looks like, I realize that there aren't that many people who have been as much as even 1,000 feet beneath the surface, even 100 feet. I'd have to say even 10 feet, because although there are a lot of divers today, they still represent a fairly small fraction of Earth's population, 8 billion people as a whole. Most divers are ambassadors for the ocean. They come back, they want to share the view. I have come back, I want to share the view. And as a scientist, I want to share the bit of knowledge, and not anybody can actually tune in. That's one of the gifts, one of the reasons for hope today. What we know, we've learned more since I first began exploring the ocean in the 1950s than during all preceding history. Our ability to gather knowledge, to synthesize knowledge, to look at the patterns, to look at how one thing connects to the other, and we're getting better at it all the time. So what we now know is that the ocean governs climate and weather. It's the living ocean that shapes planetary chemistry. Now we know that the ocean is in trouble. So at the same time that we've been learning so much, we've also been losing more than during any time in human history. The knowledge that we have has been gathered because we have the technology to do so, but technology cuts both ways. We have the power to destroy, to clear-cut forests in an afternoon at a rate that is unprecedented. We also have the capacity to clear-cut the ocean. So now we have a fraction of life in the sea from what it was in the 1950s when I began exploring the sea. Today, we have about half the coral reefs that existed then. We have only about 10% of the sharks remaining. And look across the network of life in the ocean, the seagrasses, the kelp forests, those systems that are powerhouses of generating oxygen, capturing carbon, maintaining Earth as a favorable place for us. What gives me hope is that now we know, and there's still time. About half the coral reefs are still in pretty good condition. We still have about 10% of the sharks. And while some other creatures, like bluefin tuna, are in worse condition than the sharks, maybe in the Pacific, 3% of the bluefin tuna remaining, and we still have the capacity to find, capture, and market them. We also have the knowledge to know what to do to take care of them while there are still some remaining. It worked with whales. There are more whales today than when I was a child. That gives me cause for hope. Our actions do make a difference. When we protect an area on the land, we can see tangible evidence of recovery. And the same happens in the ocean. Now, what gives me hope? That nations around the world, 190, have committed to moving in the direction in the next 7 years by 2030 to protect 30% of the land and 30% of the ocean, and to respect all of our blue miracle of a planet, and to treat life on this planet as critical to our own existence. I have joined with Mission Blue other organizations, other countries around the world, other people who are working toward this 30% by 2030 goal of protecting the ocean. The high seas, we now have a treaty that makes protection of the high seas possible. But all things considered, the most important reason for hope is that we are turning hope to action. Hope is great. We must have that vision. We can make the world a better place. But all by itself, hope doesn't work. We need to act. So with Mission Blue, starting from about 10 years ago, we had a small number of places where champions and communities were working together to scale up from wherever they were to get to better protection. Right now, there are 151 places, a network of hope around the world, working with other organizations to get to that at least 30% by 2030. But there are lots of red flags waving too. Deep sea mining could unravel some of the last vast, really highly intact areas. We should do everything we can on our watch to protect the last wild places and restore what we can while we still have time. I'm really pleased to be a part of this conversation, to look at the blue economy with new eyes. In the past, economy means taking, selling, marketing, whether it's minerals or oil or gas or wildlife, land and sea. Take from nature, natural resources to power our economy. Now, we're using this thing that is on our shoulders, our minds, to look at the ocean and look at ourselves differently. There are great fortunes to be made that really use the ocean, use the land, use nature without using her up, to be able to restore as a source of the new blue economy, the new earth economy, to learn to live within our means, to find our place within the natural systems that keep us alive. So I applaud this conference and the wisdom that all of the participants here bring to this moment in time, when for the first time, we kind of can see ourselves as never before. It's the last best chance we will ever have, while we still have these intact natural systems, the engine that keeps Earth running in our favor. So I just think my message of hope is to realize that we do have a chance as never before, and maybe as never again, to use as our message every day. We really must take care of nature. We must take care of the ocean as if our lives depend on it, because they do. Thank you.
Well, Sylvia, thanks so much. I really promise I would not keep you longer, but if I may have a quick feedback from you before letting you go, because I know you're super busy. You touched some keywords that now I will be adding to my list. You said acceleration, you said knowledge, deep ocean, not a desert. So what I get home from this message is that in order to increase the knowledge, diving deeper into the knowledge is not enough. We also need to fly higher and look at the puzzle from its overall composition. The value of getting out of our silos, which is what you have been doing so greatly in all your scientific activity. Technology is not the guiding line without a philosophy. I think you also said that. So tell me only one thing. Can hope really comes into spots? Or we need to connect these spots eventually? Just a quick feedback, if I may.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's no one place, no one person, no one government, no one organization can do what it takes to maintain Earth as a habitable planet. Now we know it's knowledge, the power of knowing, the superpower of knowing, the communication, the technology that now connects us. That's cause for hope. Working together, everybody doing what each can do that nobody else can do. That's what makes the ability of humankind in the 21st century the luckiest humans ever to exist. It's the power of knowing. Elephants are really smart. We know whales are, cats and dogs, but only humans have the power of knowing what the problems are with the power to do something about it. So
connecting the elements.
Exactly.
Well, Sylvia, Earle, what else? Thank you. Thanks a lot, Sylvia. Really, I have no words to thank you. We would love to keep on conversing with you, but it's time for us to let you go to your duties. And if you stay with us if you want, as long as you can, but feel free to disengage. You really set the scene and gave us a lot of things to think about. Thanks again, really. So now, bye. Let me use the opportunity to have a wonderful working connection, you never know these days, with, and bridge now this gap with Ted. Ted, I mean, what can I say about you? You are considered the iconic representative man of exploration. What does it mean from the point of view of an explorer to rediscover some hope spots? I mean, what is the value? We are not here trying to discover new worlds in a way, but somehow we are close to that. We are thinking about going back to have some areas in their pristine situation in order to rediscover their capability of providing services, of functioning. What is the value from the explorer point of view of this, if it has any? Because it may also not be of interest to you, no? I'm provoking, of course.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Sandro, for having me, and to all of you there. Greetings from from New York City. Just before I answer that question, I do want to mention that we've had the honor and privilege of having Sylvia at the Explorers Club all week. And we saw her Monday announce new Hope Spot in Iceland and recognize new ones here in the US. She spent time with our next generation of underwater explorers. She previewed a brand new film that she's doing with Yo-Yo Ma on deep sea mining. She's speaking to you here. Now she's going to speak in the main stage, and then she's going to go out on a boat tomorrow in Shinnecock Bay with us. Her energy and her electrifying of all of us is just so hard to put into words. And she cannot get from one end of the Explorers Club to the other without a stream of people stopping her and saying, you've changed my life. Here's what you said. Here's what you did. Here's where I met you in the past of your long and storied career. And everywhere she goes, she leaves a wake of inspiration, excitement, and yes, hope. She is a blue treasure. So I'm so glad that you all had a part of her for this day, because she is unique. To your point, Sandro, about the exploration, you're right. The exploration, as they say in the age of GPS, is a little different than it was back in the sort of the golden days of exploration, as they call it. But we're in a new golden day now, and you can define that two different ways. One is that there are still places that we literally haven't gotten to, and that could be space. It's certainly deep oceans, and I know you've talked about that today. It's caves, it's mountains, it's jungles. Woods Hole just discovered a new coral reef in deep water. The firsts are going to keep happening. But maybe what you were getting at is the second point, which is that it might be seeing the same place, but it's with different eyes, different sensibilities, and different priorities, whether individual or societal. And the Hope Spots are a great window into that. And I want to just mention the way that platform has worked for us to set that up. So a year ago, we announced a Hope Spot, the first one in New York City, that we did together with Stony Brook University. The Explorers Club is the co-signer. And we did this out on Long Island. And New York, if you look at it on a map, people think of honking horns and big buildings and all that. And sadly, right now, some environmental challenges for sure. But if you look at the map from a height, it's really a water community. It's an island community surrounding us. So we had designated a Hope Spot out on Long Island. And importantly, it's in Shinnecock Bay. And the Shinnecock Indian Nation has long had rights to a great part of that Hope Spot. So in designating our Hope Spot, it was, in the first instance, really important to be inclusive and bring people together and have this be a community-based affair. Because if you look at the perimeter of the Hope Spot, there are all different kinds of people living, working, recreating there. It's truly an amazing spot, but very, very diverse. So by naming that Hope Spot now, we also get to generate activity around it. So ocean tech is a very hot topic. We feel we need to get more data, more measurement. You've been talking about that today. We have to understand the oceans better. Someone just mentioned that with respect to observations, there's 7 to 10 orders of magnitude more data available for the atmosphere and terrestrial than there are for the ocean. So we're just at the very beginning of that.
So in the context of... For a second, Ted, sorry. One quick comment. What could be a Hope Spot in front of New York? That's driving the curiosity of some of the people here. Just 30 seconds on that. What is the value of that from the oceanographic point of view, if it is in the ocean? If it is in the ocean. Just tell us 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's if you look at a map of Shinnecock Bay, you'll see it's a remarkable situation with respect to the land and sea around it. But it's also, the reason it's a story of hope is that Stony Brook and the community for years now have been cleaning up the water, which not only 10 or 15 years ago was really quite horrible. And using clam replantings and other techniques, they've restored it now, and it's a beautiful ecosystem. So it's a version of a lot of cities on the water around the world. So showing that you can go into something that's right near a city, 80 miles out of the center, out of the heart of Manhattan, and clean it and be stewards of it and move it forward. That's how I'd answer your question, Sandro.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, you are also engaged in a more Mediterranean hotspot, if I got it correctly, right? In our maybe a slightly different location. Can you tell us a bit about the Sardinian hotspot, or you want me to mention that?
I think it would be great if you did. We've been in close touch with Jan and with Mission Blue, and we're excited to see it move through the process. And next World Oceans Week, maybe we can have a much bigger conversation. But please go ahead and describe it. It's a fantastic
very
place in the
quickly,
world.
just to bring again the attention on the fact on how these hope spots, which can be, as you understood, representative of many efforts of human beings trying to make the condition pristine or given hope about the feasibility of this action. One of them actually very strongly wanted and investigated by One Ocean Foundation is in the Caprera Canyon regions northeast of Sardinia. So we're trying actually to identify spots that then needs to be connected, because the value of connectivity from the ecosystem point of view, but also from the virtual point of view of the powerful of the ideas that you apply on that is absolutely outstanding. So I just wanted to touch base on that quickly. So sorry if I interrupted you, Ten. I know you were almost going to the end, and I know you're also very busy, but if you feel like you can stay with us in the next minutes, I will try to drag you maybe for a quick comment. If we lose the connection, we thank you once again now with a big applause anyway.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll try to stay.
Thank you very much.
Don't feel you have to come back to me.
And of course, thanks for having reminded the effort that the whole organization had to secure the presence of Sylvia. I'm also very, very grateful to One Ocean Foundation and to Bocconi to have you and Sylvia as special guests. But we have also other really special guests. So let me go back with a picture, please, from the engine room. And let me address the Honorable Minister Kitlang, Kabua. We heard about how establishing hotspot or protected areas can actually allow the ecosystem to recover, to go back to a pristine situation, can give the ocean a breath that we need to take to face the next decades. But we shouldn't run away from the difficulties of this. I mean, these actions they don't come at no cost. What does it mean, Mission Blue Mission, hotspots for a big ocean country, a big ocean nation like the Marshall Islands, but also a country that has, of course, its own GDP, and that's a role that needs to be understood, protected, but also sometimes maybe helped by the international community. How do you pragmatically engage in your wonderful big ocean country this kind of challenge, if it's possible?
Thank you very much to our moderator. Can we give him a round of applause? Very good job.
Well, yeah, thank you. But
Buen pomeriggio a tutti, and Yahweh from the beautiful Marshall Islands. It's unfortunate that you all could not be back home to witness the beauty and the pristineness of our country, but I bring a couple of photos for you to peruse. First, before I get into some statements and responses to our moderator's question, I would want to extend our gratitude on behalf of the government and the people of the Marshall Islands to the One Ocean Foundation. Thank you very much for inviting us, to the Bocconi University, to the coordinating committee. It is great to be here, part of this dialogue. Before I make my statement, I would like to impart some wisdom from my ancestors in the Marshall Islands. They had recognized the importance of our ocean, what they had taught us, generations and generations, because the Marshallese people and the Marshallese culture has been in existence for thousands of years. They said that the ocean gives us life. We live because of the ocean. We're grateful to institutions and organizations such as Mission Blue and the Hope Spot Initiative for recognizing the value of countries, of cultures, of people who live in the vast ocean. For those of us who do not know where the Marshall Islands is located, we are nestled comfortably between Hawaii and Japan.
Comfortably.
Comfortably. There's no place like home, right? When you look at the map, the words Marshall Islands is bigger than the actual islands itself. It is a country that consists of 29 atolls. One of these atolls is the largest in the world, Kwajalein Atoll, which I am a senator from. 4 islands, thousands of islands and islets that span 750,000 square miles. We have a mere population of 42,000 people. However, we are equally as important as the largest populated country in the world. The ocean gives us life. We live because of the ocean. To have one of our atolls be recognized as a hope spot, this hope spot is called Woto Atoll. It is where my great-grandmother is from. It is a very small atoll. The current population is only 70 people. However, it is a key site where turtles go to nest. It has beautiful biodiversity, marine wildlife. It has a bird sanctuary on one of the islets of this atoll. The lagoon is one of the most beautiful that I have seen. That's the lagoon in the photo that you see. Bora Bora-esque. Traditionally, in Marshallese culture, we had conservation sites, which is essentially what a hope spot is. It's a conservation area, marine protected area. This is what our ancestors had practiced as well. We call them no, which literally translates to English as restrictions. You cannot go to this island to fish. You cannot go to this island and collect herbs or vegetation or kill the animals. We protect that. Why? Because we saw the value in conserving, being responsible. Because us humans, we are not superior. We are part of nature. We have to recognize that in order to appreciate it and take care of it. Aside from a hope spot in the Marshall Islands, we have similar initiatives, modern day initiatives, conservation sites. What we call this program is Remanlak, or forward thinking.
Emang.
That means good.
It means good.
Good.
Yes.
From the Remanlak program, the national government sits with each local government, each atoll, each single island, and work with all levels of that community. It is a community-based approach to conserve, to protect our land. We help them develop this plan, and then the national government helps link them to resources or to support in order for them to achieve the actions in said plans. This is in line with our 30 for 30 goal. 30
Don't spoil too much, because I wish to have another question on you on that. But so you're highlighting how this is interlinked with the global governance.
Yes.
You said that Marshall Island is equally important. I would dare to say no. It's probably more important, because it's giving an old ancient culture message that, and we will be mentioning it after. That's your middle picture. So if you don't mind, I would, and if you're done, of course, I would try to stop you there and link with the lawyer. But please finish if you have to before.
Just one point,
Sure.
which is why I appreciate representing the Marshall Islands in this forum. Although we have pristine land, our ocean is sick. We have a horrible legacy that we had witnessed for a period of 12 years in the late 40s. This was the nuclear testings that were conducted. A total of 67 nuclear bombs were tested in the Marshall Islands. This left remnants, radiogenic remnants, and we all understand that radiation, nuclear radiation, survives, the half-life is for thousands of years. So this is another issue that we are faced with. It is not a national problem. Our ocean is connected. Our globe is connected. So
It is.
thank you very much for
It is.
including us.
And first applause, but yes. We have no time to talk about the nuclear problem, but yes, I would dare to say that what nuclear abuse did not manage to do, luckily, well, this even a stronger damage could be done by climate change, actually. So we need to pay even more attention to that. It's very good that you mentioned that. But going back now to the capacity of finding a global governance to help us, in your capacity of director of Marine Policy Center, Rama, and also in your capacity of lawyer, a very well-estimated profession, I should say. We are all respectful of lawyers. Is the governance worldwide intended enough to protect this? What are other actors that should or could be called into action to accelerate this protection? Do you have an answer for us as a lawyer?
Thank you very much for that. And before I begin, let me thank our hosts, the Ocean Foundation, in particular Carlos and Jan, and my friends Stefano and Rafa for the invitation. And it is a great honor to be part of this panel. Sylvia Earle is somebody that I had admired for a long, long period of time. And I want to begin with what she said about the 1968, looking at the Earth from outer space. That should have given us a pause in terms of what it is, the fragility of the Earth and what we need to do. And then it took us quite a long time since then to recognize that we need to focus on oceans, and that happened in 1992, at the Rio Earth Summit. Yeah. That's when the World Ocean Day was declared.
Ocean far too long neglected.
It's far too long been neglected. But then you referred to me in your introduction as a lawyer, which of course I am, and I spent my whole life teaching and negotiating and drafting international agreements. So some of the things that I say sound rather boring because this is taking the kind of message that people like Sylvia have about the integrity and need for integration in terms of things that we do into action.
You have to translate them.
And to do that in a world that has 193 countries, Marshall Islands, one of the smaller ones in terms of population and also area, to countries like India and China that have, between them about 3 billion people, it's not easy. And what the United Nations is trying to do and has done with the adoption of the Climate Convention, Biodiversity Convention, and Law of the Sea Convention and others, is to bring all these actors together.
Give us hope also in that direction then.
So in that context, it becomes not just the broad principles of what we need to do, but how do you translate that into action? How do you get them to agree to a common framework? And this is where we get into trouble. This is where the silo approach comes. This is where we have our member countries, the way they divide up the countries in terms of various ministries, etc., is reflected in what we do at the international level. So the basic question is, okay, all right, we did not do as well as we could have done, but now that we recognize the importance of connecting them, what do we need to do moving forward? That's the key question.
That's the key question, actually.
And we now, we have heard people talk about John Kerry and how he said ocean action is climate action and climate action is ocean action. And yet, we don't have a way to connect what was agreed to in the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change with what was agreed to in the UN Convention on Law of the Sea.
The UNCLOS.
Including
famous UNCLOS.
The High Seas Treaty that is just adopted, and we are trying to move forward with it. Yeah. So we need to find a mechanism that needs to, that would help us with it. The couple of last points, and then I conclude, and one of which is that if ocean action is climate action, and particularly climate action is ocean action, we are facing an existential threat with climate warming that is going to impact everything that we do on the oceans.
Say it again, existential threat.
Right, absolutely. And so we cannot separate these two. And one thing that I'm very pleased to report is the Glasgow Climate Summit recognized for the first time. It took them 1992 to 2021
Yeah.
to say that ocean and climate dialogue should be a formal entity in the United Nations. So we had done that in 21, and then 22 we had the first formal dialogue. I had the honor to moderate that discussion in the United Nations, and so that is taking place. And the current high-level climate champion, Razan Al Mubarak, had taken on that theme in particular and is doing her best to connect oceans to climate. We need to do the similar thing with the High Seas Treaty, which is really needed. And the last point I want to make is the immediate challenge is reducing the concentrations of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And to be able to do that, we need not just governments, but every stakeholder in the world. That in particular includes the private sector. And they need to be part of the equation, and we have done that in Glasgow with the Net Zero Alliance, about $130 trillion worth of companies coming together. We need them to focus not only on what was important to climate, but also what is important to biodiversity and the oceans. And to be able to do that, I go back to Jan Packner's definition of the blue economy that he talked about this morning. We need to take a very close look at it. It is not just bringing business and giving them opportunities to make money, but doing that in a manner that is sustainable, that helps all the various entities that we want to protect.
Thank you, Rama. As usual, lawyers have this capability of condensing everything in few words. Thanks a lot. Sustainability, environmental, economic, social, the power of mediation in international context, the acceleration of the context of ocean, or the role of the ocean in the climate. It took a long time to spin up. Now we hope it will be accelerating again after the UNCLOS. The high sea recent agreement. There are all the ingredients that are making us having hope that we're facing the perfect storm in a positive way to accelerate on this. So thanks again for having made this very quick but thorough picture. And now let me just ask our friends Dawa. I mean, you may be wondering what an Himalayan Sherpa hiker, climber, he will tell us, has to do with ocean. Well, Dawa, from your point of view, we describe a lot of problems related to the climate change affecting the ocean. Does it make you ring a bell? Is anything really different from what you see up there in the mountains? And how is your feeling of having all these different, apparently different areas connected? Mountains, trees, forest, biota, atmosphere, ocean. How do you feel that from your privileged point of view when you look down at all our poor people engaged with the ocean?
Well, first of all, thank you to the One Ocean Foundation to have me here. And as Sandro was saying, you might be wondering why a mountaineer is here talking, at an Oceans conference. But yeah, Sandro, to answer your question, we are all one planet. And as Sylvia said earlier, we are a blue planet. And that doesn't just mean the ocean, that means the land as well. Nepal, the Himalayas, is called the water towers of Asia. And as Rama earlier mentioned, there are 3 billion people in China and in India, and these are the same people that are depending on the water that flows down from our mountains. But guess where the water comes from? It doesn't just spring up from nowhere. It comes from the oceans, travels up to the mountains, and then flows back down again. So not only are we interrelated, we are interdependent.
Yeah.
So we depend...
The fresh water making your glacier comes from the salty water of the Marshall.
Absolutely.
Through evaporation and condensation. So.
Absolutely. And then all that water then flows back down, carries the nutrients back to your oceans, and so that cycle continues. So we depend on each other. And so I think that this is a great opportunity, and I'm really grateful to come here and say that we are one. It is not that the oceans have their own problems and the mountains have their own problems. We have related problems which need to be solved together.
Yeah, well, that was an amazing quick answer. I know we started a little bit late, so I know we will get some more time. But this idea of a circle, let me just use it for a second. Rama, do you think that to move on, we need probably to rely also on this kind of circular concept? Does it make any sense when you talk about to all your people international level, the idea of having something circular, close in, and not something projected as an area in the future, careless?
No, they do talk about it, but the question is, talking takes you only so far. We need to translate that into action. And to take those actions, this is when you have the kind of divisions that we have in the world come to play. And that's what we need to address at the core level to be able to make progress.
And you have hope for that? What are the mechanics that are making you feeling that this can be now reached? What is a more general agreement, the fact that government understood we're all sharing the same planet, or the pressure of the peers, the pressure of population?
You see, we have so far looked at all these issues as intergovernmental issues. The UN, the primary members are the member states. I know I'm sitting with a foreign minister here and I should be careful in terms of what I say, but the fact of the matter is the decision making and the solutions are the kind of thing that we're talking about, whether it is circular economy or cradle to cradle, they require the world at large, and particularly the private sector. And we have not incorporated that factor. I mean, there are two things that we need: knowledge and money. And the two things. So we are in a university, so the knowledge part of it is clear. And the money part, we have so far relied in every single international decision on public money. And as long as we continue that, we are only going to go so far. Because the requirements are so huge, we need to be able to make sure that we can do this sustainably. The private sector can make money off it, but make money the right way, by helping other countries.
Thank you for the answer, then. In order to save time, we skip even applause. But this is making me think another question. Honorable Minister, you come, as I said, from a wonderful ocean country. Can I have the slide again, please, of the Marshall Islands? And now, sorry, but I have to indulge in my oceanographic knowledge. And I mean, it's actually the only country, the only nation in the world that used waves as an orienting tool. The old Marshallese, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, but even some of the actual ones, can actually orient themselves among these 29, 28 atolls by understanding what's happening to the waves. So you have to imagine that you go out at sea with this outrigger canoe. After 200 meters, you look back at your atoll, you don't see it anymore, because the atoll is 25, 30 centimeters above the mean sea level, and with a little bit of waves, you don't see that. So the problem is, when I finish fishing, how do I get home? How do I get back safely? How do I use the knowledge that I have acquired before and not during my trip to go back to my place? Well, they built these tools called navigational stick charts, a kind of tools with two entry. When you lay down on your canoe, you can feel the sea surface height, the significant wave height, and you, in a way, also feel the frequency, the passage between one crest and the other. By moving your hands into this tool that has been done before, and here is again, before thinking, as you said, Reman look, foresight attitude, you have the knowledge before, and then you have the way to come back. Because at the cross of these things, you will find some small shells, and those shells are indicating the atolls that is refracting the wave that is hitting your canoe. So the message is, I can feel the environment, I know where I am, a sort of GPS. So how much relevant is this fundamental, empirical information? Somehow also mentioned by Rama, what we didn't get in the last year that we may be getting in this, the top-down approach is not enough. What do we have to do bottom-up? What is your government, your nation doing in bringing this exceptional knowledge up?
We are bringing back traditional knowledge. We are bringing back traditional practices because that was the sustainable way of living. There is nothing wrong with it. It is legitimate as the knowledge that we find today, scientists develop today. If we combine this top-bottom approach, bottoms-up approach, we will meet at the center, and it will be all great things. So that is what the Marshall Islands is doing, and I understand a lot of the Pacific Islands as well. We are looking back to the past to answer modern day problems, and one of these is to bring back sails, sustainable shipping, sustainable sailing. Another comment that I would like to make, because one of the words, yes, if we had a word map, the word hope would be the largest that we see. The fact that we know what we need to do in order to save the world, to save our lives, we need to work together. And if I may impart another knowledge that our ancestors had passed down, an pilingiling koba kaman loyot. That means every droplet combines together to make the ocean. And as the former late climate change giant Tony DeBroom had translated this saying, we are all the figurative droplet in the ocean. If you are responsible for one droplet, I am responsible for one droplet, he is responsible for one droplet, we can all save the world if we work together as one.
Well, thank you. And in doing that, you know what I will do? I will remove this necklace. Here we go. Maybe, if I don't crash my microphone. And I use your marmar, which is the traditional necklace of Marshall Island, right? Which was gifted to me. So you understood, you heard how much wisdom we have in the words of a small nation with a lot of ocean culture. The droplets, we should have asked you a few years ago, and we had the solution there. Droplets all together make the ocean. So thanks again. This is a very, you will have to write it down for me then. I will gladly. So we are proceeding towards the end, I would say. Be ready with a short video that I will please ask you to run mute. Before trying to draw some basic conclusion, which of course will not be conclusion, but just further ideas for the future, my friends, let me go back to Dawa for a second. What strikes about the climate change, Sylvia, Earle, and already Rama mentioned it, possibly is now the strong acceleration we are facing. So a few years ago, we had to distinguish between weather and climate. Weather is the day-by-day variation, hour-by-hour variation. Climate takes centuries, decades. Well, we are not really so sure that you have not been able to see. Can you just launch the video meanwhile, please? Yes. Some dramatic changes already happening during your relatively short career, I would say. So while the video is displayed, can you also provide your own summary, your feelings on what you saw changing there, which is so much related to what is changing actually also in the ocean, please?
Absolutely. So I'd like to pick up on two key words, one from Honorable Minister, droplet by droplet, and then one by Rama, which was existential threat. And those 2 points are what brings me here today. And that is the fact that our glaciers in the Himalayas are melting and they are turning into massive lakes. And these massive lakes sit above all the villages, above all the villages, and are ready to burst out at any moment. And these aren't just sort of threats that are in the future. These aren't things that we have imagined that might happen someday. These are risks that we are living with day in and day out. The Sherpa people, my people, have lived through this. They have experienced these big glacial lake outburst floods. So imagine tsunamis in the mountains. That's exactly what they are. They destroy property, they kill people, they kill livestock, and they make the entire valley useless for generations. And so this is an existential threat for us. And it is not only about, mountaineers like me being at risk climbing in the mountains. It is people who live in the mountains, but also lower down, further down. For example, all the water that people use for agriculture down in the Gangetic Plains, they come from the Himalayas.
Absolutely.
The hydropower that powers all the industries, that power homes all the way to the coast, they are also using the water that comes from the mountains.
So
right?
this huge amount of waters is now lost, maybe during period where we don't need it, and it's leaving other dry seasons without water.
So we have two problems now. One is that the glaciers are melting and there's less and less water. The second threat is that the melted water that have pooled in the mountains can burst out and destroy hydropower dams. And from my own village, I will tell you, in 1984, the Austrians built for the Sherpas a hydropower dam. Few months later, a glacial lake burst out and it washed the entire hydropower dam away. It was only 1994 that the hydropower dam was rebuilt. So literally, climate change pushed our people 10 years into the dark, literally, right? And so we're not talking about, something that will happen later on. It's already happening. And so that's why, again, I'm here today telling you about, it's not only about raising awareness. It's great to talk with you guys, but I like to get my hands dirty. I need to go into the mountains. So, one of the things that we're doing is cleaning up mountains. But another thing, again, on the point of climate change and the glacier melting, is with the Bally Peak Outlook Foundation, we've built flood barriers, we've built canals that when these floods come, they divert away from the villages. And these sorts of work is very, very important. And just to end my point, we're talking about hope spots and biodiversity here. I'm also an ambassador for the World Wildlife Fund in Nepal, and in the time that I've been a World Wildlife Fund ambassador, I'm so proud to say that Nepal signed up for the 2x Tiger Pact, which was to double the number of tigers. Nepal has tigers, by the way. It was just to double the number of tigers, and of all the countries that signed up, Nepal was the only one that was able to double the number of tigers in 20 years by 2020. And so there is hope.
There is hope.
There is
If
the
you
problems
act
that we've created,
wisely.
Sandro, climate change, pollution, these are problems created
We
by
create
us.
it. Yeah, sure.
We can
That's
solve
absolutely.
it as well.
Yeah, we are the origin of the problem. We can solve it, yes. So, I think I have a couple of minutes more. Just Ted, if Ted is still there, if maybe he can offer a quick comment. Ted, I know I have neglected you. If you're there,
I'm here.
I'm not sure. Are you? So, Ted, please,
Can you hear me?
you want to draw your own conclusion in a minute, and then I will try to wrap up.
Just a brief observation. Well,
Yeah.
What an extraordinary panel, and congratulations to all of you for all that you're doing. And I think this idea of true global inclusivity and designing projects and organizations and all these initiatives from the start with those principles in mind as we build capacity for the oceans, I think it's critical and so well expressed today. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you also for your patience. Thank you. So, well, it's time to wrap up. There is not much we can say except again, we start from the word hope. We do have hope, but we have to act wisely, act timely, act bridging the bottom-up information with the top-down scientific knowledge increase, use the technology in a wise way, before using technology, perhaps defining a guiding philosophy. Do not think that technology will become and save us during overnight. It will not happen. The major risk we see out of all this complex situation is the risk of oversimplifying a complex problem. It is not a simple problem. It requires complex tools. Looking at interconnection, looking at all the droplets. The value is in the interaction between the droplets, not in the droplet per se. So once again, thanks to our panel, and thank you.